mean, it was horrible. This thing had been filled with garbage. We found 2 dead cats in there. I've got a picture of a moving picture of a cat that came up to where we were working, and it stood there and looked at us for a bit, and then it just turned and walked off like, you know, what are you idiots doing there? But anyway, in January 6, 1982, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I found the Arca of the Covenant. Right? You would not believe the amount of stone and dirt and everything we had moved. God kept our interest up by thinking that just any minute we'd find it. You know, for all of that time. Usually the carrot doesn't work for that long a period of time. I think you know about holding a carrot in front of something so to get it to move. So anyway, we found it. Now, I hadn't thought anything about the crucifixion site. Like everyone else, I thought it was up by that Muslim graveyard on top of that cliff. And in fact, I went up there looking one day for it, and a couple of Muslims kind of helped me off of out of the place. My feet touched the ground about every 10 feet. But anyway, I didn't see any evidence up there. But as we dug down the face of that cliff, we found those 3 cutouts. Now, folks, there was only one crucifixion site in Jerusalem, and that is it. Not only that, the place where they crucified people was the same place where they stoned people. Right? There's a very strong tradition, in fact there's a big church built up there, where they supposedly stoned Stephen. You remember the story in the Bible? And he said, I beheld heaven, he says, I beheld heaven open, and I saw the Son of Man, or Jesus, sitting at the right hand of God. And there's a special, this is a special place up there. There's a book with that title for sale in there. And I suggest you get it. It's a very good book. So anyway, when I found the cutouts, we were digging along the cliff face, but the dirt out here was beginning to threaten to fall in on us and bury us. So I went to the left, dug a shaft straight down, and you know where that little bench, that curved bench is sitting out there in that pillar? By the way, those are pagan symbols. What they're doing in there in a Christian place is amazing, but it's a symbol of sun worship, and the pillar is a phallic symbol, fertility symbol. They're not right over the Ark of the Covenant, but I'm surprised they are even that close. So as we tunneled along at the quarry floor, at the base of the wall, I found the cross hole. And I worked around and found some more cross holes 4 feet lower on the real quarry floor. I thought this was the quarry floor, but actually it was a kind of a bench-like thing where they hadn't taken the last set of blocks out as they quarried their way down. And so anyway, I prayed, Lord, where shall I go now? Now, we had found the crucifixion place, and I was quite excited about that. But we were looking for the Ark of the Covenant. And if I had had my way, I would have found the Ark of the Covenant, and I would not have found the crucifixion site, because I wasn't looking for it. As always, God had more in mind than I had in mind. As more than any of us humans, he says that he will give us more than we can ask or think. And I found that to be very true, and of course you will find that to be very true too, and some of you already have, those that are sharing things with other people. Because today God is taking a strong hand in finishing His work. Anyway, I was impressed to break right through the cliff. Not this cliff, but one that looked every bit as solid. Right? Well, I'm dumb, but I didn't think I was that dumb. Okay. So anyway, I kept looking around for a place to get in that cliff. I knew there were caves in there because honeybees were coming out of cracks and flying in. So they had their nests in there. So anyway, my youngest son, he says, "Dad, have you prayed about this?" And I said, "Yes, you know, I should have prayed with my sons. We look back and we see mistakes we've made." But he asked, and we did pray together at night and morning, but I should have prayed right there. Anyway, he said, "Did you pray about this?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, did you get any indication of what to do?" I said, "Yes. I'm supposed to break right through that cliff." And he says, "Well, let's do it." And I said, "No way. That's stupid. I'm not doing it." So we worked for 3 or 4 more days, and it was time to leave the next day. And my oldest son was down with me, and we were handing the tools out to my youngest son to store them. And my older son is rather a quiet person. He said, "Dad, did you pray about this?" I said, "Sure, yes I did." He said, "Well," I said, "I was impressed to break through that cliff right there." And he said, "Well, let's do it." And I said, "No, that's stupid. I am not beating my brains out against a cliff." He says, "Well, Dad, pardon my saying so, but I've seen you do stupider things than that." I said, "Okay, tell Ronnie to pass the tools back now." Now, if you look carefully, you'll see a crack right here. All right, it's not much of one, but it is a fault line through that stone. So we went 18 inches over to this side, took our hammers and chisels and started marking the stone up and down and up and down. Finally, a big chunk popped out of there. Pushed it off to the side, looked back in the bottom. There was a small dark hole about that big. Didn't look very promising at all. I had my son hand me the flashlight. We had them sitting where we could see. This was all down in a tunnel. And so I put it up to that hole, and there was a big cave chamber back behind there. Have you ever had goosebumps and all of that sort of thing? Just overwhelmed you? Well, that's what happened to me. It didn't take us very long to make the hole big enough to get in. I thought the Ark of the Covenant would be sitting right there. It wasn't. So since we had to leave the next morning, we plugged that hole. We came back to the surface, plugged the hole, fixed everything up so nobody could tell where we had been, and left. I had to go home, work, save up some more money, come back. But eventually, I found the Ark of the Covenant, and it was in a chamber that I would not have bothered going in, just like I wouldn't have bothered breaking through the wall. My 2 sons had gotten very ill in 1982. I sent one of them home Christmas Eve, the other one home New Year's Eve. I owed the hotel $300. I had no money at all. As a friendly Arab let me seat at his restaurant. And that, folks, to me is humiliating. You know, there are some things that I'm not comfortable with, and I was experiencing several of them. That trip, I decided that I was going to find the Ark of the Covenant or die in the hole. This may sound a little melodramatic, but I was humiliated. I couldn't pay my bill at the hotel. I'd rather be dead than in a situation like that. And that's not good logic. So don't go down and do likewise on that one. So anyway, there was the little Arab guy that was letting us eat at his restaurant. He was a full-grown man, but he's about that tall and small, petite. So as we went through this cave system, he would crawl into the chambers, and I'd give him a light, and he'd shine it around, and I'd peek through to see if it looked like anything in there. So we did this over and over, and we came to this one hole. After I mean, you wouldn't believe where all we had gone in that cave. However, how many of you have ever been inside a big cave? The tunnels and chambers and all. Okay, you know what I'm saying. We had just been all over the place, up and down, different levels. And at this point in time, we had gone about 45 feet down and then back up. And here this hole was in the wall, about that big around. And there was a stalactite hanging right down the middle of it. It's the only stalactite I had seen in the cave that wasn't just little ones. This was a big one, and I have it in my collection of things. So I broke it off, made the hole big enough for him to get in, and he was crawling in there, and I started to hand him the light so he could do what we had been doing, you know, several days. He came tearing out of there. His eyes were big as human eyes can get. And he said, "What's in there? What's in there? I'm not going back in there." And I said, "Well, what did you see?" He said, "I didn't see anything." And I thought, well, okay. Now he'd been in tighter places than that and had not responded that way. So I got this little beam of light, you know, in a very dark place here. And I thought, that is divine terror. You know, that's supernatural terror. So I figured that is either where the Arca Da Aliança is, or it's the way to get to it, one or the other. And God doesn't want this fella to know where it is. So anyway, he said, he just said, I must get out of here. So off he went. So I made the hole big enough for me to get in. I got in there, and folks, it was full of rocks, bigger than these here, up to within 18 inches or so of the ceiling. If this young man hadn't been terrorized and come scooting out of there like he did, I would not have gone in that place. But who needs rocks? We've been moving thousands of them for 3 years. So anyway, I crawled in there with a flashlight, and I crawled around on top of the rocks, and I shined the light down between the cracks in the rock, and there a flat gold thing reflected back at me. So I moved over and shined down through another. There was 2 reflections, one here, one there, and one over here. So I knew it was a flat gold top. And I thought, the Ark of the Covenant. I forgot about the cherubims, you know, sitting on top. They'd have been poking up through if that was the top of the mercy seat. But anyway, I started moving these rocks, and I stuck them everywhere I could. By the time I got down to that gold surface, I had them behind my shoulders, leaning back against them, and it was the table of showbread. Well, hey, that's not a bad find, huh? But anyway, I was looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and it was only then that I took time to carefully examine the rest of the chamber. See, I had just crawled in, took a quick look, and started checking down under the rocks. So as I moved the flashlight along the wall, I saw a stone box sitting against the wall about this low, this much space between it and the ceiling. The lid was broke, slid around, and right above it was a crack with dark brown looking material at the bottom on the bottom of this crack. And I was able to see the top of the lid of the box. On both sides of the broken pieces was more of this brown stuff. All of a sudden I realized I was sitting in front of the Arca of the Covenant, and that Christ's blood had come down. I had never heard anybody preach anything about that sort of possibility. Never. And it was too much for me. When I regained consciousness and looked at my watch again, 45 minutes had passed from the time I crawled in the chamber. Because I figured I'd find the Ark of the Covenant in there, I wanted to know what time it was. So anyway, it was 2 o'clock when I entered the chamber. And after I regained consciousness, it was 2:45. I couldn't see down in there, but I knew what it was.
O sangue e a água escorreram abaixo pela rachadura causada pelo terremoto. O profeta Isaías escreveu que o Messias, quando fosse ferido e quebrantado, borrifaria muitas nações. O próprio Salvador disse que quando iniciou o serviço de comunhão, ele formaria uma aliança com todas as pessoas com seu sangue. O sangue da aliança. O sangue confirmaria esta aliança. Quando o Messias se tornou um sacrifício, ele borrifou o seu próprio sangue, assim, preenchendo o papel de sacerdote. Então ele se tornou sumo sacerdote. Gratidão por assistirem. E até o próximo vídeo.